highest tree fall down. Mama, I'm fine, don't worry. Go back out to sea, sail home, sweet home, where the ships must go to get all cleaned up and put away.
Howdy, howdy.
Hello, hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, good sir. And
Good to
hello
be
to all of you who are watching.
I feel like it's been so long since me and you have been on a live together.
I know. Schedules have been crazy.
Was Stump the Advocate the last one that we actually did together? It feels like it has.
Oh my gosh, you might be right. I think you might be right. Yeah, because I think I did one or two by myself, and then you've covered a couple
It was like
of
2 months
Fridays
ago.
here. Yeah,
Well,
that it has been some time.
Here we are back on our favorite topic, IHSS, and our maybe not favorite part of IHSS, filling out time cards. I mean, to be fair, this is a part of the process that me and you don't have a lot of, I think, firsthand experience with. You might more so because your mom had to do it for years and years, but it's not something that I have to do a whole lot. I don't get a lot of questions of it usually.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like whenever as advocates for the past several years, we've had many, clients and families that we work with who have questions on it. But thankfully, we do have a team. We'll shout out John and a couple of other folks who have been a big help in, training certain, folks on how to do timesheets. And thankfully, there's so much free information online too, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many YouTube tutorials. So for those of you who are watching who are needing help with timesheet support with IHSS, thankfully there's a lot of great tutorials on YouTube and information even on the IHSS's county's website. The county that you're in, they'll usually have like a provider training section. But yeah, we're going to go over today just a lot of common questions, a lot of information that we think you should have as somebody who's tracking time. This is a real job. If you're a caregiver with IHSS, you are employed through IHSS to track your hours and get paid, right? And so it is a very important topic, and there's definitely some things I think we want to share, and I'm sure you all have questions. So for those of you who are tuning in now, welcome. By the way, we've got a few people on Facebook and a few people on YouTube. You guys know the drill. If you want to drop a comment, let us know how you're doing, where you're from. If you have a question, please drop that. We will do our best to try and answer these questions today.
And I think we're going to try and do sort of a balance of both, like the basics for people who are maybe brand new to the program, brand new providers, but also cover some of the more specific, difficult, questions for people who might have a unique situation that requires a bit more of an explanation. But before we get into any of that, I did want to give a shout out to our upcoming seminars. We're going to have a whole girls trip here at the office where Myra and Nicole and Lori, I think it is, and Michelle are all going to be down doing a seminar all together. Teresa just put the link in the comment section here. There's going to be two seminars, the 25th and the 26th of April. The first one in Orange and the second one in Glendale, I believe. And yeah, it's just our regular seminars like we usually do, talking about all things special needs, IHSS and regional center, special education. I think we have a section for elderly care or like transition to adulthood planning. And I think this is the first time that we're doing this. If you sign up ahead of time on the website, it's a completely free seminar, but if you sign up ahead of time, when you show up, your family will get I think, $25 gift card for Amazon just for being a part of the community, being part of, our seminar. We just want to say thank you and give back.
That's awesome.
So shout out to that. We'll probably mention again at the end for people who show up late, but Caleb, do you want to just get us started?
Sure thing. Well, I'll start with, it looks like Ms. Lori has dropped a comment. Hello, everyone. I'm starting IHSS. I'm in the process. Nice. Well, we're glad you're here, Lori. I don't know if you're new to our page or if you've watched our streams or worked with us before, but we're glad you're here. And if you have any questions about the process, let us know. Oh, she did drop another one. Just waiting for doctor's paperwork, and I will have submitted as soon as I get the paperwork. Nice. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
We will hopefully have good information for you for a little bit further down the process.
Yes, that's right. And, we'll talk about this real quick. And Lori says she's new to the page here. Perfect. And sorry for the background noise, guys. The wind in this house is crazy, and I've got a couple of crazy little dogs that are wrestling each other right now, so forgive me. I don't know if you guys can hear that at all, but it's driving me nuts. So, Lori, like Dakota said, so today's topic, which is going to encompass a couple of steps ahead of where you're at. But good to know. So you're in the process of gathering the paperwork. Next step is to probably meet with your social worker for an assessment. And then after that's all done, that's when you'll have an idea of how many hours per month your recipient that you're caring for, or for yourself, if you're the recipient, would be able to claim. And so I'm going to assume that you're the caregiver and you're signing up to be a paid provider. So that means that after the hours have been established and approved for this person you're going to be caring for, you'll be able to sign up as a provider you'll go through a provider enrollment process. And so provider enrollment means you got to get your background check done, fingerprints done, and you'll be attending an orientation. All of this is just so that they can essentially, hire you as a caregiver and make sure you're trained and taught how to do it. And then, after that, you'll be approved and you'll start submitting timesheets every pay period. And Dakota, I had this question asked recently. Is it usually once per month or twice per month? Because I know it's usually bi-weekly, but if somebody wanted to fill out time cards once per month, they could, correct?
I think so. I mean, I think the monthly amount is what really matters as far as like keeping things within your allotted hours. Like the month matters a lot for that. But I do know, I think you can do it. I know bi-weekly is an option, but I would imagine monthly probably is as well.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Sorry. Well, thanks for being here, Lori. We're glad you're here.
But I think so.
Yeah. Hey, it's a fantastic answer, Dakota. Lori, we're glad you're here.
Okay, Teresa double checked for us. It is actually only bi-weekly.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay. And Lori did drop another comment here. She said, yes, it's for my son who just turned 18 years old. Thank you for the information. Great. Well, we're glad you're here, Lori. We're glad we can support. Let us know if we could support you in this process here.
There will definitely be some things I think that'll be specifically helpful for you to know because your son is an adult when it comes to this topic. So we'll get to it. Perfect.
All right, Dakota. So we do have, some information that Teresa put together, the team put together to kind of go over. I'm happy to just kind of start picking and choosing some areas we could start with. But did you have anything you wanted to start with before we jump into that?
Well, no, I think I was ready to jump in, and I was going to say about the very first thing they talk about is like logging your hours before you're even submitting them is just keeping track of it. What I was going to say about that was, I think in most cases, we're going to have one of two scenarios when it comes to who's taking hours. Is you'll either have the plan ahead of time is that if you're like a parent or a family member, for a lot of people, you're just going to do all the hours yourself. Every time, every week, every month, you're going to handle all the hours as one provider. In which case, it's a lot easier to know. It's very easy to plan out like that you're going to take the whole hours. Unless you're sick or in the hospital or something, it's going to be pretty much the same every month. And in other cases, if it's not a family member, if there's multiple providers, all of this stuff about who's working what hours and who's doing what tasks really should be decided ahead of time, right? Like, you don't want to have a thing where you show up, you do some tasks, write down your hours based on that, and then another provider comes in, they do some tasks, and there's a whole conflict. These things should all be discussed way in advance and have everybody on the same page of you're going to take 5 hours, you're going to take 4 hours, you're going to work Monday, you're going to work Thursday, you know, like all that stuff should be done ahead of time so that there's no worry about having to write down exactly what time to what time you were there, because it was already, you know, decided beforehand.
Yep, makes perfect sense to me. There is a question. Can a parent provider sign their own timesheets as the administrator? So this is an interesting question because it's kind of actually gone up and down as far as like whether or not it's okay. So Dakota,
Yeah.
you can share with me if you have any experience, but my experience the last couple of years has been, in the past, it was a no-no for a while, and then it became totally fine and normal for years. And then a couple of years ago, social workers started to kind of go backwards a little bit and say that that's not possible unless it's under a couple of circumstances. So it's still a little up in the air for me. Do you have a solid answer?
I don't know if I have a solid answer, but generally what I have heard, and this has been true for, I think a lot of social workers have kind of held to this over the years, is it's, if at all possible, they would prefer not to have a parent provider sign their own timesheets. But if you are a parent provider in a single parent household and there's no other adult living there who could do it, then they will generally allow it in that circumstance. Is that one of the circumstances you were referring to, of like they'll make an exception for this? Because that's generally what I've heard. They're like, if there was another parent or someone else in the home that could sign timesheets, they would prefer that.
I think that's the only circumstance that makes sense to me and that I've heard. Whereas if there's like absolutely no other option, kind of like enable an available parent for, you know, the provider rules back in the day, right? So kind of similar vibe, I guess you could say. And it looks like I think this is the same. Yeah, this is the same Miss Tan here. Child is 7. So yeah, so in this case, if you have another adult or, you know, spouse, parent who is capable of signing off the timesheets, we would recommend that. I think IHSS would recommend that. It also can just be any trusted adult, to my understanding. So it doesn't have to be somebody who lives in the home. So I would. Sorry, Dakota, did you have something to say?
I would just say it's probably more beneficial if it's someone who's in the home, because they would actually be able to see and confirm that these services are being provided. But yeah, I think it doesn't have to be necessarily a family member, just anyone, any adult capable of filling out the form.
Yeah, that I agree. I agree. Well, thank you for being here. I think it's Mary Carr. I don't know if we're pronouncing that correctly, but thanks for being here, and thank you to Makasoy. I hopefully you pronounced that correctly.
We do our best.
We do our best. Okay, so I think that was it for the comments here. So thank you for the few likes and shares, everybody. I know you guys do that every single week. That's a big help to push a lot of this information out to those who may need it. So if you know somebody or know a support group that you're a part of that is in the space of IHSS or special needs, disabilities, please feel free to take a moment and tag those groups, tag a friend, or share this to another page if you can, this stream here.
I think before we get any more questions, we should go over like the most basics for anyone who's brand new to the program, of like, what is a timesheet? How do you get it? How do you fill it out? So I'll just try to go through some of that stuff, and you can fill in the gaps where they are. So for anyone who's brand new to the program, if you don't know, once you've had your assessment, your recipient, your child, your family member, whoever has gotten their hours, you as the provider, once you've done the orientation and you fill out the paperwork and you get approved, you're going to receive a form that says, okay, you're approved to be a provider, you're going to work for this recipient, and this is the number of hours that you can work in a week. We'll get into some of the details there, but once you have that, you make an account on the timesheet portal, which is where you fill in your hours, and you select the recipient. It'll say, I believe it says on the portal how many hours in a month they have, what the weekly maximum, all those things. And you fill out how many hours you worked each day on the portal, you know, for the whole month. We were just saying earlier that they do it in two week chunks, so that you do it twice a month. And once you fill it out, you submit it. The recipient, that's the person with the disability who receives the service, they then are supposed to check it over, confirm that you did actually work those hours, sign off on it, and say, yes, you can pay this provider. And then the county will pay the provider. It gets a little bit messy because a lot of recipients are either under 18, so they can't fill out their own time cards, or they can't confirm their own time cards, or they might have a severe mental disability and also don't understand the situation with the time cards. And that's why we have these questions like, well, can a parent both fill out the time and also confirm the time? These are situations that come up sometimes because the child is either young or mentally impaired. And so, these are some of the situations. But the basics are, the provider fills in how much time they worked. The recipient confirms it, has to, look it over and make sure that that's correct. And then it's all submitted to the county for the payment. Anything? I mean, that's just the most basics. Caleb, is there anything you want to add to that explanation?
I don't think so. I think you covered pretty much all of it. Yeah, that was I'd say very thorough, yet uncomplicated explanation. So job well done.
Yeah.
We do have another question.
Go a little bit more into some of those things a little bit later.
Yeah, Brenda, does a 3-year-old child qualify for? I'm going to assume you mean, do they qualify for the program in general? Maybe. Dakota, do 3-year-olds qualify for IHSS?
Yes and no. I mean, okay, technically, by any legal standards, yes, they can qualify. However, the chances of them getting any hours and the amount of categories that they can qualify for is very, very low. At 3 years old, your options are pretty much only protective supervision and paramedical. I think respiration might be available at 3 years old, but it's going to be either a extremely severe, like self-injurious case where they obviously need protective supervision way more than any other 3-year-old, or they have to have such severe medical disabilities that they require like hospital level care at home. So technically, yes, a 3-year-old does qualify for IHSS and can qualify for IHSS, but it would only be in very specific circumstances.
Yep. Took the words out of my mouth. Thanks, Dakota. Ms. Ronka, why live-in providers can approve their own timesheets? I'm not sure if that's a question, but if you're asking why they can, that's just how the rules are. The rules currently allow for that in some circumstances. So,
like we were saying earlier, generally, if there's just no one else available, if the recipient themselves is unable to, and there's just no other adult who knows the situation who's capable of filling them out.
Right. So, looking at some notes here, let me see. So we've talked a little bit about approving timesheets. We've talked about some of the timesheets, kind of 101, right? The process, how it works. Do we want to maybe jump into, I'd say, a pretty popular question we get in regards to like back pay? Do we want to talk a little bit about how back pay works with IHSS, how the time card, conversation comes into play? Do you want to maybe jump into that a little bit, Dakota?
Yeah, that is something that does come up fairly often, especially after either a long battle with the social worker that takes them a very long time to approve hours. More often, it's a problem when you win a hearing, right? So you got approved for some number of hours at the assessment. You request a hearing. The whole process happens 3, 4, 5, 6 months later. Hooray, you won the hearing. You're getting an extra 150 hours or something like that, right? But then what? Well, now you have to worry about all those previous months. You had already filled out those time cards. You had already gotten paid for those months, but now you were supposed to be getting an extra 150 hours each month. what do you do? And that's where there's two possibilities. Some counties will just calculate it for you, and they will calculate the number of hours that you were missing, and they will just send you a check, one lump sum, with all of the hours for all those months. However, important to note that when they do that, very often that check will be addressed to the recipient. So while normally you submit your hours and the pay goes directly to the provider, if you get a check for back pay for several months, then oftentimes it will be addressed to, thank you, Lisa, we appreciate it. That back pay check will oftentimes be addressed to the recipient, and sometimes that recipient is like 4 years old, and so that can be problematic at times. It can be an issue, but that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing that happens,
really
go
quick,
ahead.
Really quick on that, Dakota. So for those who might be confused by that, so the reason, so this scenario that Dakota is bringing up is called a special transaction payment, I believe is the term they use. And so technically it is, and forgive me, Dakota, if you had said this, but it is a transaction to the recipient because technically it is to pay the recipient back because they possibly were paying privately to that provider, right? So that's why it's always been that way. And we like to be on top of that with families that we're working with because of the other option that Dakota is about to get into. But if the county decides to write you a check, it's really, really important to calculate that check and compare it to what you should be receiving in back pay. Because we have seen it far too many times where they won't include certain hours, certain months, or even just flat out, they'll just not include any overtime pay on these special transaction payments. And so it's really important to keep watch of that to make sure you understand exactly how much you're getting paid and if it's an accurate amount. But like Dakota said, it oftentimes will be written in the name of the recipient rather than the provider, because technically it is paying the recipient back for all those months that they've technically been paying you privately. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little odd, but.
And essentially the another reason they do that, and the reason why the special transaction, I think you said you mentioned how it doesn't include the overtime payment, right? I think part of the reason why they address it to the recipient and why it does not include the overtime that you should have received is that, in theory, the recipient's hours during that time could have been provided by multiple providers. And so if the hours were supposed to be split between multiple providers, there wouldn't be any overtime. And so they don't assume overtime when they make that special transaction. So that's one way it could happen. And it's a set of problems that goes with it. But the other way is supplemental timesheets. And that's sort of what I think we were getting to originally is, if they go the supplemental timesheets route, then you have to go back into the portal and request timesheets for the months that you already filled out. And you have to get those timesheets and basically add hours for all the time that they gave you.
Do you mind if I jump in on that?
Yeah, go ahead. You might have more experience with some of this stuff than I do.
So, one thing I wanted to mention is the fact that you won't be able to claim these hours or even request supplemental timesheets until the social worker has approved it. So there's a step that happens. So if you go through the appeal process, you'll only need to request supplemental timesheets if it's been a really long period of time. Sometimes you may have to do it over the course of a few months, but usually this is when you've gone like 6 months, 7 months, 9+ months, and you're needing a really large lump sum in back pay. And so if you go through the appeal process and you end up getting the judge's decision and the judge rules in favor of these hours going back 8, 9, 10 months, the county will have 30 days to make this possible within the timesheet portal. But sometimes they won't put like an approval in for the supplemental timesheet like backdate. So a lot of times when you go in there and click supplemental timesheets like request, it'll get rejected, or it'll go to payroll and payroll will call you and say, hey, you requested timesheets going back 9 months, but the date here says 3 months 90 days. And so sometimes that can happen. And so in an event like that, you have to coordinate with the social worker, or you have to coordinate with your local office to confirm that the supplemental timesheet back date is the same as whatever the judge ordered, or whatever the date of application is, or whatever the effective date is that you're supposed to be. So just kind of some thoughts there in case you ever do run into that issue.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that you will oftentimes hear, especially the social workers or payroll people say, well, we can only go back a certain number of months. We can only go back 3 months. We can't give you anything older than that. And that's just a matter of, you have to go to someone higher for that, right? If there's an issue where it's beyond 3 months, you're supposed to get 6 months of back pay. That's something you have to deal with a supervisor or someone higher up. And either they have to do a special transaction like we talked about, or they need to overwrite something in their system that says it's impossible to go back more than 3 months, because they cannot refuse you to get your hours back to the date of the assessment if that's what the hearing found, was that you need the hours back then.
Right.
But sometimes they have to go around their typical system parameters to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Dakota, because we have heard plenty of times where people will call and be like, hey, I talked to my social worker and they said that I can only go back 90 days. And that's just not exactly the truth. That may be the truth for that social worker, right? That may be up to their power. But in the rules state that you are entitled to retroactive back pay going back to the effective date, whatever that is. Whether that be at the time of the assessment, whether that be a month after the assessment because that's the next pay period, or maybe it goes back all the way to the very first date of application you submitted that app, right? So the effective date is very important. We do have a couple of questions, Dakota. Should we jump into that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So Brittany says, I'm having issues with doing my timesheets for my back pay for the first month. I had been putting the weekly hours, but it says I hit my monthly max on my 3rd week. Dakota, we just talked about this, and I can get penalized, but the max hours for the month haven't been met. Am I doing something wrong or not understanding?
Do you know what? Because I'm thinking about something. Okay, so I know there are sometimes. Well, I'll just explain what one common issue is, and then we can figure out if this is related to that or if this is a whole nother issue. One common issue people do run into when it comes to timesheets is that the weekly maximum is not, for most months out of the year, the weekly maximum is not the amount you want to put in every week because it won't add up correctly. The weekly maximum is based on a 4-week month, but most months don't have exactly 4 weeks. And a lot of them, the weeks get cut in half. So you get like 3 days of 1 week and then 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. And then at the end of the month, you might have 4 days at the end of that week, or 5 or 6. And so the weekly maximum, if you were to put it in every week for a month and split it evenly across all the days, you would go over your monthly maximum. The thing is, what you're saying here is that you hit the maximum on your 3rd week, which I don't think it would happen that early. And you said there that you didn't hit your maximum hours for the month. But you also said this is related to your back pay. So perhaps instead of only putting in the increase in hours, you put in the total amount of hours. And so you hit the maximum much earlier. Caleb, do you have any thoughts on what could be the issue here?
That was exactly where my head was going with it. So it's hard to gauge, Brittany, exactly the situation. So if you don't mind maybe elaborating a little bit more, I'm reading, excuse me, your comment again. You've been putting the weekly hours, but setting them at the maximum 3rd week. Okay, I'm sorry. So yes, it is the back pay. So my guess is that is what the challenge is. She did write another comment. Let's see here. My son is a minor and is connected to me as the provider, but it says there's no live-in certificate. Is that something I need to call my accounting office for help? Or is there something that I missed when setting up our accounts for the timesheets? So you definitely want the county to recognize that you are a live-in provider. Same with payroll. They both have to know that you are a live-in provider for a few reasons. One of those would be taxes. If you wish to opt out of being tax exempt or opt in of being tax exempt, they have to know that you're a live-in provider. It's really important. Mm-hmm. So it still doesn't quite give us the answer probably to the question that you have
I
here.
don't think that would necessarily affect the inputting of hours for the
Right.
back pay.
Yeah.
A supplemental timesheet under the time entry.
Yeah, so sorry, Teresa's looking up some information for us. We got that. The issue is just that when she went to fill in those supplemental timesheets, it sounds like the issue is as she was filling in the supplemental timesheets, hit the maximum way too early. So like I was saying, my best guess is that, let's say, for example, let's say you had like 100 hours and then got approved for PS, you get an extra 195, puts you at the maximum. If you had already claimed 100 hours for all those weeks the first time, and then you went back in and you filled in not just the extra 180 or whatever you got from PS, if you filled in a day-by-day thing as if you had just gotten 283, then perhaps that would have caused you to reach the maximum after after 3 weeks. Because I think on the supplemental timesheet, you wouldn't be filling in for the whole month. You'd only be filling in for the extra, right? So if you're at 283 now, you wouldn't fill in the supplemental timesheet to add up to 283. You'd be filling it in to add up to 195 or whatever your increase was. So without more, obviously you did reduce it by a few. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's my best guess, but it's the kind of thing that we'd have to see. If you are a client of ours, I know John does a lot of troubleshooting, looking into this stuff to try and, figure out what's wrong with it. So if you're a client, we can help with that. If not, maybe you can give us a call and maybe we can talk more about it.
Yeah, I agree. Brittany, thanks for sharing. Hopefully we can get something figured out for you. We have another question. Can I use both paper timesheets and electric timesheets at the same time?
I don't know. I mean, you definitely can't. At least I'm pretty sure that you cannot submit them for the same days. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't, unless you just want to. I don't know. I mean, so many people have switched to electronic timesheets. I
think it's become the standard.
Wrong, as long as it's different time periods. You know what I mean?
Well, so to my understanding, paper timesheets right now are sort of obsolete.
They are, but I don't think they can completely get rid of them. I'm not sure.
I'm with you on that. I remember there was a big deal about this a couple of years ago where that was the message, where they're like, they're not going to accept paper timesheets outside of doing supplemental timesheets. But I think exactly what Dakota was saying is that if you are doing paper timesheets and if they've been accepting it, as long as it's a different pay period, I don't see the issue. But what is the county telling you? If you could share with us maybe some information you're receiving from the county, are they giving you any idea of what they would prefer? Or do you have to be enrolled one way or the other where that's just how it works? I don't know. I haven't heard that before being an issue, but yeah. Brittany said, I told them I was a live-in provider when I did my orientation. That's good. So they should have that information, but sometimes they don't. So it's best to probably just double check.
Well, and I think to what you'd said before, you said something about being certified as a live-in provider. It might just mean that you haven't filled in the live-in provider self-certification form, which is pretty much just used for tax purposes. And that's the SOC 2298, which is for confirming that you are a live-in provider. Right. I think, like we were saying before, I think for filling out your time cards, as far as the social worker is concerned, it really doesn't matter. But for your taxes, for your wages being exempt from taxes, it's necessary to fill out the form, even if the county already knows that you are a live-in provider.
Yep. Thank you, Teresa. So if anybody's looking for information on help with electronic timesheets, check out the portal here, the help desk number that Teresa made in the comments here. And thank you, Brittany. We're glad you're here. All right, Dakota, do you want to talk a little bit more about? We talked this conversation of weekly maximums, monthly maximums. Do you want to maybe address kind of a common, not a common question per se, but like a mistake that can be made, something preventative when it comes to like understanding and knowing your weekly maximums versus your monthly maximum?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I did explain this a little bit already, but the general problem that you run into is that the weekly max, like I think on average in any given month, there is 4.3 weeks in a month. And so when your weekly maximum says you can claim, I think for 283, it says like 70 hours and 25 minutes or 70.25 hours. And if you were to enter that every week for 4 weeks, you would, or for 4 weeks, you'd be fine. But if you put it in for the last few days of the month, then you would end up over your maximum, over your monthly maximum. And so what we typically suggest is take your monthly hours, divide it by, I think John usually does it by like 29 or 30, and enter your hours like that. And then whatever's left over at the end, like find a nice round number that's easy to enter that is just below that. And then whatever's left over, you put it on the last day. I think you do it by 29 days. You plan it out so it's evenly across 29 days. And then you put the remainder on the 30th day. And then if you're in a month of 31 days, you just put 0 on the last day. I think that's what John usually suggests. That way it's easy to remember, it's easy to do, and it works for every month except for February. And then you just got to worry about February for itself.
I got an idea. Let's get John on here real quick. Teresa, can you ring John on and bring him up on the screen, please?
It's unlikely.
Just kidding.
Send him a message and said, "You want me to hop on and just give some advice?"
For those of you who don't know, John is a lovely individual who has helped Myra with Galt advocacy here for many, many years, ever since the beginning. But he's a little camera shy, so he's not going to be jumping on. We're just teasing. Cool. I think that's all the questions. Thank you, Teresa, by the way, for pinning the 2298 form. Again, to reiterate, that is for tax purposes. If you wish to be tax exempt, if you want to notify the IRS that you're a living provider so you can be tax exempt, that would be the form you need to fill out and send to the IRS.
It's good to do it now. I mean, because we're coming up on that date. So it's if you haven't already done it and you want to, jump on it right away.
Brittany, is it recommended that we mail it in or walk in and submit it? Which are you referring to, the tax form, or are you referring to the paper timesheets?
2298.
I mean, I would say if you mean the 2298 form, I would say walk in and submit it just so they got it. It's a little bit more reliable. And I assume for the timesheets, well, if you're doing timesheets, it's best to just do it online, right? Okay, yeah, it is the tax form. If it's not too much hassle, I would say walk it in because it's just more,
Sorry to interrupt. Sure. I think the return address is specifically Sacramento. So if somebody doesn't live in the area, though,
yeah, if it's a state, if you have to send it to a specific part of the state, then just mail it. That's fine.
Yeah.
And I think Teresa added some context about paper timesheets here if we want to check that out. So
paper timesheets can generally no longer be submitted for IHSS providers. Registration for electronic timesheets is a condition of employment. Okay, so that is a bit more extreme or a bit more solid, I think. So I think that answers the questions in regards to.
Yeah, I feel like for a while, it probably was COVID, right? And I feel like for a long time they were like, we're going to get rid of paper timesheets. And then there was so much pushback because, well, some people can't do stuff online. Some people can't do the over the phone stuff. And then I think when COVID happened, they were like, here's a perfect excuse to show that we can do everything online. We can do everything remotely. So we're getting rid of it once and for all. That's probably around when it happened.
Yeah, you're probably right. And
99% of people had switched over to electric at that point anyway.
Mhm.
So
yeah, and it's a little easier and more convenient for everybody involved, I think. But Teresa, here's more information about submitting the 2298 form. Perfect. So again, if anybody has tax questions about being tax exempt, this is the form you want to look at. It does have some information, as well as the website that Teresa linked here, which is the CDSS website. I don't think we missed any comments. I'm just doing a quick little skimmer. Okay. Cool. Anything else you'd like to go over, Dakota?
Well, let me take a quick look, see if there's anything. Oh, there was one more thing I thought that we might want to just touch on very briefly, and it's about the penalties, right? What if something goes wrong, right? What if you make a mistake, you get flagged, you get a strike? Well, that's what happens, is that they work on a strike system. I don't remember exactly what the details are. I think it's like 3 or 4 before you get any sort of like actual loss of your ability to be a provider. And there is a way to remove strikes from your record, essentially. I think the first one is just a warning. The second one, there is I think a training that you can do, some kind of like a retraining on how to fill out timesheets correctly, so that you won't make a mistake again in the future. And if you can complete that training, they'll remove a strike. I think I've heard from some people that you can do this multiple times and continually remove strikes from your record. And it's only, I think, after your 3rd or 4th strike that you will be temporarily, for 1 month or 3 months or for a year, be disallowed from being a provider. And this is for things like going over your maximum, claiming hours that someone else had already claimed, those kind of mistakes. And a lot of those mistakes are kind of hard to make with the electric system, because they'll just won't allow you to submit. They'll say, you're over your monthly maximum, you're over your weekly maximum, and it will just prevent you from submitting, or it'll just give you a big warning, right? So with the paper timesheets going away and the online taking its place, a lot of these things are more rare. But if you do get problems, if you somehow submit hours that you weren't supposed to, you get several strikes before you face, a loss of your ability to be a provider.
I was not aware about removing the strikes from the record, though. Can you elaborate more on that?
I don't have the information with me, but I've definitely heard of this before, that I think it's after your 2nd strike that they will give you the option to complete. It's like an online training. It's like an online,
like traffic school.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's that you are given a re-education on how you're supposed to submit time cards and what you are or are not supposed to do. And I believe upon completing that training, they will take the 2nd strike off. And I think technically this is only supposed to happen once, that you can get the strike removed, and then the next time it stays. But I'm pretty sure I have heard of people online, other places, who have talked about receiving multiple of these strikes and being able to redo the retraining multiple times.
Gotcha. Cool. What happens if you don't submit your timesheet on time?
Yeah, do you want to take this one?
Sure. You don't get paid that pay period. So it's as simple as that, really. I don't believe you get penalized per se. There are times where people may miss a month or two, and then I think you can submit it retroactively up to a certain point. So if you go more than a few months without claiming any hours, you will become inactive at times. So IHSS, they do have some tracking capabilities where they will track who's an active provider for an active recipient, and if hours for that recipient are not being claimed, they might do a wellness check on you. They might follow up. They might have payroll connect with you. You might get a letter in the mail saying you've been in. I've seen that, where you'll get a letter in the mail saying you have been inactive for X amount of time if you don't claim hours by this point, your provider status will be terminated, or this recipient's hours will be terminated, things like that. So I don't think there's necessarily, yeah, not instant. No. So if you go a month or so and you maybe miss the deadline, I think you would have to actually, I'm sorry. I don't think there is a true deadline. Is there a deadline, Dakota? Does it have to be submitted on that same day every single month?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. We'll have to look into that for you. But let us know in the comments if that's an issue that anybody has dealt with. Because I do think you are allowed to submit your timesheet technically at any point in the month. Because that's how supplemental timesheets work, right? You're not submitting it on a certain day. You're submitting it on you're submitting the pay period, not the day that it was submitted.
We might have to get talk to John and get a more solid answer later on, but we'll post it if we do get one.
Fair enough.
But to what Caleb said about the them checking in on you, as he had mentioned before, it is the county's job to link a provider to a recipient, and so they do care. Once they've assigned you this person, if those hours are going unclaimed, they're going to want to know why, right? They're going to look at that and say, okay, if this provider, it's like that's the only provider that we know of that is working with this recipient. So if they're not claiming the hours, then this recipient is just going without care, and that is a problem. And so that's why, like he said, they will look into these things, and they might set you as inactive and reach out so that they can put a new provider in your place, because the whole point of the program is that someone needs to be providing this care.
Yep, that's right.
Well,
John is chiming in.
oh, John has something to add. I'll relay his answer.
Okay, I'm trying to type it in, but he forgot.
Okay.
First violation is a warning. Second violation can be adjusted. Third will be a 90-day with no pay.
Okay, so this is going back to the penalties. If you miss your if you make an error on your timesheets and you get a penalty, the first one's a warning. The second one is a mark, but it can be adjusted, like we were talking about. And the third one is 90 days unpaid.
Okay.
So you cannot be paid as a provider for 90 days. And I believe if you get a fourth, it's a year where you cannot be a provider for a year. Did he say anything about that? Or
I believe it is, but he didn't say anything about
okay.
it. Okay, here he also said you can submit the timesheets late. And yes, Caleb is right. If you're inactive too long, you can lose provider status, probably more like 6 months. And there's no deadline.
Okay. If anyone didn't hear that, what I said was you can submit your hours late. They will eventually check in on you, and they will eventually make you inactive. But he said it's probably closer to 6 months before they'll set you as inactive. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's no deadline. There's no big issue to submit it up to 3 months late. That doesn't even get.
So beyond 3 months late, and that makes sense. A lot of things involved in IHSS and Medi-Cal have this sort of 3-month retro period where once it's beyond that time, they're going to have an issue with trying to make those payments. But
Before 3 months, you can submit it whenever.
all in all, we would still recommend being on top of it as early as possible. I mean, obviously, you want to get paid as a provider, but it's just generally, I think, a good thing to be up with it.
I agree. All right. Should we wind down here, Dakota? I know, I assume Nicole's going live at 1 o'clock, right?
I believe so. Do we want to, just for people who showed up later, briefly mention our seminars?
Yes, sir.
All right. So for anyone who didn't hear the announcement at the very beginning or our previous weeks, we've got 2 seminars coming up in Southern California on the 25th and the 26th of April. So it's about a month and a half out still. And we're going to be doing the 25th, that's a Saturday, in Orange County, and the 26th, which is Sunday, in Glendale, and at the Embassy Suites. I think both places is an Embassy Suites. And Myra Galt is going to be there. Myra the Advocate's going to be there. Michelle and Lori and Nicole. All of them are going to be there for the seminar. We're going to talk about all things special needs. It's completely free, but both seminars completely free. They're going to last about 2 hours with question and answer time. And if you want to stay late, usually we'll have some time where you can talk with the advocates or talk with Myra one-on-one for at least a little while afterwards. They're completely free. And if you sign up ahead of time on our website, when you show up, we are giving out Amazon gift cards. This is the first time that we've done this. $25 per family if you sign up ahead of time when you show up, just as a thank you for being there, being part of the community, and for, you know, also maybe to, if you had to drive a little ways, to help you out there.
How about parking?
Parking. Do we know about parking? Is it?
One of them is free. The other one you have to pay for parking. It's, I believe, $12. They reduced it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
more on that.
one of the parking's free. The other one is going to be some amount of money. Hopefully, if you do sign up and you get the gift card, that will help make up for a little bit of that.
Teresa, Lori wants to know if we're going to be in San Diego anytime soon.
No. Come take a trip up to Anaheim.
That's a 2-hour drive without traffic.
Oh, well, sorry to say, probably not this
But
year.
if you take a trip to Disneyland around April 23rd or 4th, drop in and see us.
Can we say?
Sorry, Lori, no San Diego trip in the foreseeable future, but possibly, maybe. Again, I don't know. If you can swing up another couple of towns north, I'm sure the gals that are going would love to see you. Thanks for being a good sport, Lori. Appreciate it.
Hey, I mean, $25, that might well, okay, maybe not make up for the gas right now, but you know,
yeah.
All right, I think is that everything? We should probably get out of the way for Nicole.
Yep. Well, thank you everybody for being here and tuning in, chiming in, asking amazing questions. Thank you, Dakota, for joining today. Teresa, thanks for being background support today. We really appreciate it. We got to get you a microphone. Might as well just get her microphone.
And we'll say
Dakota,
thank you
back
for
there.
John for some of the clarifications
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Thank you, John. Lisa says definitely worth the drive. All right, you heard it here first. Lisa Ramsey, everybody. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much again for tuning in. If you have any more questions, maybe we didn't get you today, you can reach out to our office. You can connect with Teresa here on Facebook or on YouTube. I don't know if YouTube messages, but Facebook is great. Or you can call our office and speak with Michelle. But thank you everybody for being here. If you speak Spanish, join Nicole at 1 o'clock. That's in about 5 minutes, where she'll be giving all the same information, but in Spanish. I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.